The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked jasmine, clinging to the evening like a lover's promise. My life, at 52, had become a tapestry of muted grays, each day blending into the next, stitched together by silence. My husband, Richard, sat across from me at dinner, his eyes fixed on his plate, the clink of his fork louder than any words we shared. Our marriage, once vibrant, had faded into a routine of polite nods and empty rooms. I was a shadow in my own home, unnoticed, untouched, until he arrived. Elliot, our new neighbor, was 27, with eyes like a storm-tossed sea and a voice that could unravel the tightest knots in your soul. A writer, he carried stories in his fingertips, each word he spoke a brushstroke painting worlds I'd long forgotten. He moved into the brownstone next door, his laughter spilling over the garden wall, stirring something dormant in me. I'd watch him from my kitchen window, scribbling in his notebook, his dark hair falling over his brow, and I'd wonder what stories danced in his mind. One humid August evening, he knocked on my door, his manuscript tucked under his arm. "Clara," he said, my name rolling off his tongue like a melody. "I need your thoughts on something." His smile was a spark, igniting a warmth I hadn't felt in years. I invited him in, my heart racing as if I were 16 again, caught in the thrill of a forbidden glance. We stepped onto the balcony, the city humming below, its lights flickering like stars trapped in glass. The manuscript lay forgotten on the wicker table as we talked. His words were a dance, poetry wrapped in casual charm, each sentence pulling me closer. He spoke of love in his novel, of hearts that burned despite the world's attempts to douse them. "Do you believe love can rewrite a life, Clara?" he asked, his gaze locking onto mine. My breath caught, the question a key turning in a lock I'd long thought rusted shut. I wanted to say yes, to confess the ache in my chest, but I only nodded, my fingers trembling around my glass of wine. The night deepened, the air heavy with unspoken promises. He leaned closer, his shoulder brushing mine, a fleeting touch that sent shivers down my spine. "You deserve to feel alive," he whispered, his voice a velvet caress. My world tilted, the balcony railing my only anchor. Richard was inside, lost in his newspaper, oblivious to the storm brewing just beyond the glass doors. Elliot's hand hovered near mine, not touching, but close enough to feel the heat of his skin. It was a moment suspended, a breath held too long, daring me to leap. I wanted to know every secret in his eyes, to unravel the mystery of why he saw me when no one else did. What was this pull, this dangerous current drawing me toward him? Would I dare to follow it, to let it consume me? The night held its breath, waiting for my answer, and I stood on the edge, heart pounding, craving what came next. I stood there, heart hammering, the city's pulse echoing my own. What secrets did Elliot carry in his storm-gray eyes? Would I dare to cross the line that separated my fated life from the fire he offered? The balcony felt like a threshold, and I was teetering, desperate to know what lay beyond. The evening stretched on, Elliot's presence a quiet fire beside me. We spoke of his novel, but the words were a veil, hiding the truth of what was unfolding. His fingers brushed the edge of the manuscript, and I imagined them tracing the lines of my life, rewriting the years I'd lost. Richard's silence had carved hollows in me, but Elliot's voice filled them, each syllable a spark. I was a woman parched, and he was the rain. He told me of a character, a woman who'd forgotten her own strength until a stranger's gaze reminded her. "She's like you," he said, his eyes searching mine. "She's waiting to be seen." My throat tightened, and I looked away, afraid he'd see the hunger in me, the need to be more than a shadow. The balcony was our sanctuary, the world beyond it fading into a blur of lights and noise. I wanted to stay there, caught in the web of his words, but fear gnawed at me. What would happen if I let myself fall? The night air grew cooler, and Elliot's voice softened, each word a step closer to something I couldn't name. He spoke of longing, of moments that changed everything, and I felt the weight of his gaze, heavy with possibility. My life with Richard was a house of closed doors, but Elliot was an open window, daring me to climb through. What would happen if I did? What secrets would unravel in the quiet of this night? I needed to know, needed to feel the story unfold, even as my heart warned me of the cost. The days that followed felt like a fever dream, each moment tinged with the memory of Elliot's voice, his words curling around my heart like smoke. I moved through my routine, brewing coffee, folding laundry, nodding at Richard's sparse remarks, but I was no longer fully there. My mind lingered on the balcony, on the way Elliot's eyes had held mine, as if he could see the woman I'd buried beneath years of silence. I was unraveling, and I didn't want to stop. Elliot began stopping by more often, always with an excuse. A question about his novel, a borrowed book, a shared laugh over the neighborhood's quirks. Each visit was a thread, weaving us closer, and I lived for those moments when the door would chime and his silhouette would fill the frame. My house, once a tomb of routine, hummed with a secret life. Richard noticed nothing, his world confined to his office and the evening news, but I felt like a thief, stealing glances and heartbeats in my own home. One afternoon, as a late summer storm gathered on the horizon, Elliot appeared at my door, his hair damp from a sudden drizzle. "Clara, I need your help with a scene," he said, his voice urgent, his eyes alight with something unspoken. We retreated to the balcony again, the air electric with the coming rain. The manuscript sat between us, but it was a prop, a flimsy excuse for the way our knees brushed under the table, for the way his breath hitched when I laughed. He read aloud, his voice weaving a tale of two souls caught in a dance of longing, their connection a flame that refused to be snuffed out. "What do you think she feels here?" he asked, pointing to a line where his heroine stood on the edge of a choice. I swallowed, my mouth dry, knowing he wasn't just asking about the story. "She's terrified," I whispered, "but she's alive. For the first time in years, she's awake." His gaze locked onto mine, and the world narrowed to the space between us, the air crackling with unspoken truths. The rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder, drumming on the awning above us. Elliot reached out, his fingers grazing mine as he pushed a damp strand of hair from my face. The touch was a spark, igniting a warmth that spread through me, chasing away the chill of the storm. "Clara," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the rain. "You're not invisible. Not to me." My heart stuttered, and I wanted to lean into him, to let the rain wash away the walls I'd built around myself. But guilt clawed at me, sharp and cold. Richard was inside, oblivious, his presence a shadow over this fragile moment. I pulled back, my hand trembling as I clutched the railing. "We can't," I said, the words tasting like ash. Elliot's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with a quiet understanding that cut deeper than any protest. "I know," he said softly, "but tell me you don't feel it too." I couldn't lie. Not to him. Not when every fiber of me sang with the truth of what we'd begun to share. The storm raged on, mirroring the chaos in my chest. I wanted to run, to hide from the pull of him, but I also wanted to stay, to let this forbidden fire consume me. What was this connection, this dangerous dance we were stepping into? Could I keep pretending, or would I break, chasing the light he offered? The rain blurred the city below, and I stood there, caught between duty and desire, desperate to know where this path would lead. The rain never stopped that night, and neither did the storm inside me. Elliot's words, "You're not invisible," echoed in my dreams, pulling me awake with a longing so fierce it hurt to breathe. I stood at my bedroom window, watching the streetlights blur through the downpour, knowing he was just beyond the garden wall, close enough to unravel me with a single glance. My life with Richard was a house of cards, steady but fragile, and Elliot was the wind threatening to bring it all down. Days bled into weeks, each one a tightrope walk between restraint and surrender. Elliot's visits grew bolder, his excuses thinner. A cup of sugar, a shared sunset, a poem he'd written that he swore was just for his novel. But I saw the truth in his eyes, the way they lingered on me, tracing the lines of a woman I barely recognized. I was no longer just Clara, the wife, the shadow. With him, I was alive, my heart a wildfire that refused to be tamed. One evening, as autumn painted the city in gold and crimson, we found ourselves on the balcony again. The air was crisp, the stars sharp above us. Richard was away, some conference he hadn't bothered to explain, and the house felt like mine for the first time in years. Elliot stood close, his warmth a quiet rebellion against the chill. "I wrote something for you," he said, his voice low, handing me a folded piece of paper. My fingers trembled as I opened it, his words a cascade of ink and longing, describing a woman who burned bright, who deserved to be seen, to be felt. It was me, stripped bare in poetry, my heart laid open in lines he'd crafted in secret. I looked up, and he was closer now, his breath mingling with mine. "Clara," he whispered. "I can't stop this. Can you?" The question was a key, unlocking everything I'd tried to bury. I shook my head, a tear slipping down my cheek, and in that moment, the world fell away. His hand found mine, a gentle tether, and we stood there, caught in a dance of whispers and starlight, our connection a quiet vow that needed no words. It was a fire, soft but consuming, and I let it burn. But dawn brought clarity, and with it, guilt. Richard returned, his presence a cold reminder of the life I'd vowed to keep. I saw the hurt in Elliot's eyes when I pulled away, when I told him we had to stop. "I can't lose myself," I said, my voice breaking. "Not like this." He nodded, his jaw tight, but he didn't argue. He left me with his poem, its words a wound and a treasure, and moved away days later, his brownstone dark and empty. I'm 52 now, and my life with Richard is quieter than ever. But I keep Elliot's poem hidden in a drawer, its lines a secret flame I visit when the silence grows too heavy. I'm not the woman I was, not entirely. He showed me I could burn, even if just for a moment, and that spark lives on. A mystery I'll carry forever. What might have been, what could still be, those questions linger, a story unwritten, waiting for me to find the courage to turn the page.